watch this broadcast immediately after it is broadcast live. Now, I know you don't see a lot on the screen, so give me one moment to get everything arranged for you, and then we're having a special guest to talk about the power of cell salts. All right, for some reason, this is not working, but okay, let's go ahead and get started anyway. Just maybe not be live streaming, but let's get started just the same, because I do want to bring on the guest in just a moment. A warm welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining and starting your week with us. I really appreciate it. As you know, this is Dr. Ariel Policano. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I teach and train about the Genius Biofeedback system. So today we're going to be joined by a very special guest, and we're going to talk all about the power of cell salts. So I'm super excited about that. Be sure you join our affiliate program. We do pay 20% on the package that you refer, your referral purchases. And so that could be $200. It could be well over $1,000. So if you want a little money in your pocket, please share the Genius, share the link by signing up for our affiliate program. And we do really thank you for that. Also, you can go to our blog post today. Well, let's just do the events today. We're going to talk about that in a minute anyway. On our events page, we do have two main events that are weekly. We will be having other events, but weekly. We have a Monday class, that's today, and then we have a Tuesday special clinic sort of drop-in. We call it our practitioner hour. Anybody can participate. We do ask that you have a Quanta capsule if you're one of our volunteers, and you can learn more about that by going to the page here, Heal with Us. It's basically our practitioner hour, and you can join us for that. Please do register for that. And basically you get to learn all about what I do for my clients and how I put basically how I put everything together. And we're going to look at that on the slides in just a moment. So let's actually go to that. And then Kelly is going to be joining us in just a moment here when we get started. So thanks so much for your patience. Well, we have a great lecture, as I said today, all about cell salts. And if you go to geniusbiofeedback.com, I didn't get to show you that on the webpage, but if you go there to geniusbiofeedback.com, go to the Learn menu, and then you'll find information about our blog. We do have a handout there available for you. In fact, I'll come back to that as we get started on our training. So just a reminder about Practitioner Hour on Tuesdays. Really what we're doing is I'm showing examples of what kind of food as medicine I use, how prayer is done, affirmations, and then I'm getting more into the nuts and bolts of this information that I share in Practitioner Hour in a more formal way in our business membership. So business membership, we're going to teach about the essentials of the food plans that I recommend, and also about crafting affirmations for your genius and how to put it all together to have the most dynamic and powerful practice that you can have. So the free version, the kind of summaries in our Practitioner Hour, and more details that are taught in a more formalized way are available in our business membership. And for information about the memberships, you can also go to geniusbiofeedback.com. So in a minute, we're going to get started on the cell salts, and I'm going to bring Kelly on in just one moment. Let's just go ahead and clarify. Sorry, you're not going to see anything for just a second. Let's just go ahead and clarify where that information is so that everybody's on the same page. So I'm just going to pull back to the website for a moment, if Zoom will cooperate with me. So let's just go ahead and take a look at the website, geniusbiofeedback.com. When you go to the Learn menu, go to the Learn menu at geniusbiofeedback.com, go to the blog, and we always have the class for today. We always have the class for today on this page. So right here, you can go and you can get, we do have a library on Schussler cell salts, and you can also get the guide that Kelly has created for you on this page. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we'll bring Kelly up as a panelist, and thanks to her for being willing to just say, hey, why don't we just hop on today and talk about this, because it's been such an important part of her practice. And so many times she talks to me about the results that she gets for her genius, and she'll mention the cell salts, and it's absolutely amazing how she's put pieces together with the cell salts. And I think as you learn more about what these can potentially do, you'll be absolutely amazed. And they also tell us a lot about how these different biochemical agents work within the body. So I think you're just going to be blown away. And like I said, you can get the handout we're going to be referencing today. We do have this, but go to geniusbiofeedback.com and then click on the Learn menu, click on the blog, and then you can download this. This is something Kelly has done for you, and you have that available as we go through the lecture. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and see if Kelly is available. I know she's en route to different things today, so hopefully being mobile, she can still join us today. Okay, Kelly, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Did you want to share your camera?
Is it, okay, it says unable to access camera. Okay, what do I need to do? Allow Zoom to access, okay. Did that work?
Let me try again. Yeah, it's probably a permissions issue. We'll see if we can make it happen.
Oh, start video?
Yeah.
Okay, click there. Okay, you know what, when I click start video,
It might be back in your settings. If you don't, you can play around with it quietly while we're talking back and forth. But for now, let's just get started with audio, and then you can sort of go to your settings in the background and see at any time you can join us by video feed. Does that sound okay? Oh, do we lose you there? Okay. Okay, Kelly, you just jump in when you're ready. What I want to tell everybody about cell salts is that they are incredibly powerful for you, something you could recommend. Remember, we can't diagnose, but you could always recommend it to somebody. So if you recommend it to your client or suggest that they research it and then recommend it for themselves, I think you will find an amazing friend. We'll come back to you, Kelly, don't worry. I think you'll find an amazing friend in cell salts. And when Kelly and I were discussing it yesterday, she let me know that, Schussler himself, who really discovered these biochemical agents that are in the blood, he wanted something that was much easier than all the homeopathics that you have to choose from when you're doing or we're trying to find a remedy. So he was able to boil it down to these 12 essential remedies, and it was much easier to quickly choose those for a patient or client. These are parts, constituents of the blood plasma, and they're different salts that have different effects. And when we become deficient in these salts, we can manifest certain conditions. And then by giving the salts, we can actually remedy these conditions. So it's extremely powerful stuff. Once you learn about it, you'll be able to recognize so many times when Kelly and I might be having a conversation, she goes, oh, ferrum phos would help this person. Mag phos is the answer. And so as you get familiar with these, you will also be able to utilize these. So like I said, go to the geniusbiofeedback.com and then go ahead to the Learn menu and the blog so that you can get these as well. Now I'm trying to scoop these up and my desktop is being very naughty. So let's go ahead and see if we can get these. And then I'm going to bring you back in here, Kelly, in just a second to see if we got you. So a lot of the handout today comes from a very special book called Facial Diagnosis of Cell Salt Deficiencies by David Card. So Facial Diagnosis of Cell Salt Deficiencies by David Card. And of course, we'll include that in our follow-up today in our weekly email, but you can also see it now in the webinar chat. So Facial Diagnosis of Cell Salt Deficiencies. And in that book, he not only describes a lot of the information that we'll be quoting or talking about today, but what's really cool is that he shows actual photographs of examples of the deficiency, so you can identify in yourself that you may have the cell salt deficiency. So cell salts are crucial to total body function, and we want to get familiar with the cell salts because they're relatively inexpensive. They're something that everybody can access. They're really non-toxic unless you take like a whole bottle of the cell salts, and even then it's not going to really adversely affect you because your body would just eliminate what it does not need. But when you find the right one, you're going to find that you feel like you've nailed the case. And of course, we do have a library. If you go to geniusbiofeedback.com or on the blog, you can find that Schussler cell salts library. Let's see if Kelly is doing any better with the Oh gosh, I don't know if we lost her completely here. Okay, there you go, Kelly. You may have logged back in. So let's go ahead and promote you back up here to panelist. And like I said, all the cell salts are elements that are within the body, and they all have their unique therapeutic effect. You can get cell salts. Oh, good, Kelly, there you are. Okay, so how are you today?
Let
Oh,
me
okay.
unmute. Oh, can
Yep,
you
you have
hear
volume.
me?
And thanks,
Okay.
Kelly. I know what it's like to be so busy, and I think that's so cool. You got your workout in. You're like, I'm going to get this done, and you got a very busy day today. So thank you for taking time out of your day to be here.
Yes, yes. Well, oh my gosh, everyone needs to know about this. It's like the answer to everything. So,
So and Kelly,
absolutely.
you've been using the Genius now for what, going on 6 years probably?
Oh, at least how long is I mean, I was using the Quantum Infinity a couple years before the Genius
So
even.
yeah,
How
it's
long is
more than that. It's 6 to 8 years. So
yeah.
you're very seasoned with quantum biofeedback. I guess tell us a little bit about how you discovered the power of cell salts and why you started integrating them so much into each of the sessions and cases. And now when you really think about trying to find solutions for people, you're mentioning the cell salts all the time. How did that happen?
You know, it was just solely an intuitive thing that usually does not happen to me, and that's why the Genius is so good for me. But I think I was standing in the store and saw the bottles, and I thought something came to me, and I was like, I just feel like this is the answer to everything. Download
You have a
it.
great
I mean,
sense for that.
but it took me a while to actually figure out and start using it. I downloaded that book, and then I had the book for a while, and it actually took. We spent the summers in northern Wisconsin, and we had to go to a at one point we had to go to a hotel, and while we were stuck at the hotel, I finally opened the book up and started reading it, and I was like, wow. And then I made a panel for it, started using the panel, and then I started seeing the miracles that each specific cell thought would create, and I was just blown away. And as you mentioned, the whole reason that these remedies were created is because the developer was very frustrated, loved overall homeopathy, but there are so many different remedies. It's like how do you choose exactly the right one? And so they literally did analysis of cremations, identified what the person passed away from, and then compared it to what was in the ash, and then created this algorithm of each which mineral goes with which deficiency, and then they created a whole list, and it's just an absolute miracle what you can do with them.
That is so fantastic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off for you for just a minute because I think it's causing the speed is causing you to cut out. Is that okay with
Oh,
you? And then
okay. Yeah,
we'll
that's
bring you
fine.
back.
Yeah,
We'll bring it
that's
back
great.
on. We'll bring it back
Okay.
on intermittently as well. Let me go ahead and
Okay.
stop it now, and then we'll bring you back on as we sort of maybe do some discussion. But Kelly, I want to thank you so much for doing a quick PDF of everything known. And so let me talk a little bit about calc fluor and then what I know and what I've taken some notes from the book. And then I'm going to have you jump in and tell me all about how you're using calc fluor, which is always super interesting because you take it sort of to another level. So calc fluor is, they're available usually cell salts in 6x and 12x potency. They come in liquid or small tablets, which are like the little milk kind of tablets or the little round balls that you see in any of the homeopathics. I do have an example here of a liquid from a company called Professional Formulas, and they're great for supporting tooth mineralization. One of the things I learned as a naturopath is for any type of cavities or weak teeth to combine calc fluor and calc phos, and that will help to build strong teeth. And this is a healthy, natural form of fluoride, not the toxic or synthetic form that you might see in a toothpaste, a commercial toothpaste. Calcium fluoride is all about elasticity. And so where do you see hardening, like hardening of the arteries, right? You could use calc fluor. Some of the emotional aspects are difficulty in making a decision, weakness, low self-esteem. Financial issues are particularly stressful to this kind of constitution. So Kelly, what do you use and what do you think of for calc fluor?
I think one of the most significant uses that I had is during the original COVID in 2020 when our family got the gift.
The
And
gift.
and when we did get it, I was like, okay, here we go. Let's see how good my tools are. And and the calc fluor really helped with, in that original COVID, you would just dump water. It was like you were constantly, it was just like coming out of, like you constantly had to go to the bathroom. And so it must somehow be a fluid balancer.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the most significant ones. And then absolutely the teeth. It's um, definitely helps the teeth, the thyroid, um, your overall, people that lack flexibility, the calc fluor can really help bring some of that flexibility back into the tendons. I'm using it right now for spider veins. It helps the veins. That's a chronic issue that's constantly
So
running.
that must be
running
the elasticity, the flexibility, the connective tissue connection.
Yes, yes, exactly. So, yes, and then I do not have the financial stress piece, but I have people in my immediate family that resonate towards that. And for that person that is constantly worrying, they may have what seems like absolute abundance, but they're constantly living in the fear of going backwards, of lack. um, the calc fluor really helps that from
That's
a
fantastic.
emotional.
What we're going to do is we're going to try to rapidly go through the 12 as quickly as we can, and then we'll take some volunteers, and Kelly will do an analysis of both you personally, maybe even facial diagnosis, and
Oh
also
yes.
just the things that you're saying, the things that you're communicating. So if you'd like to volunteer to have a cell solid analysis and have us run some frequencies, then go ahead and put your date of birth into the chat. And on that note, Kelly, a lot of times, what are you doing on the Genius with relation to the cell salts? You're really just running the frequency, aren't you?
Yes. Well, what I do is, if I am standing close by the physical remedy, well, what I'll first of all, I've used them often enough that I can almost intuitively know which one I need. Now, sometimes it surprises me, and that's where the Genius really is extremely important, because you can think that you need one thing, or based on the facial diagnosis, it can look like you need one specific salt. And that's another whole class, that you can literally use these cell salts. I mean, it's better than Botox, better than a facelift. I have so many friends who are going and getting, not, I don't want to say, but there are people that I know that are doing those things, and the cell salts are miracles, and they go down to the root of what's causing it. In fact, I just saw a lady yesterday who had a facelift, and I told her about the cell salts, and after a year she's gone right back to where she was before. And I was like, if you just address those deficiencies. So yes, so it's a miracle. And really, the way the things that go together, like that stress regarding finances, those same people are typically very indecisive, which goes together. So
I love
yeah,
it.
so I'll physically take them, or I will run the frequency. And it doesn't take much. You just have to give yourself a little and absorb it into your biofield, and then your body typically gets what it needs.
That is really cool. Oh, I love it. Okay, fantastic. Absolutely great. All right, let's move to Calc Foss. And we do have a volunteer now, which is awesome. And if anybody else wants to volunteer, feel free to jump in there too. So calc phos, I found associations with bone healing, and again, it's the combination of calc phos and calc fluor that we learned about would be a great combination for strengthening and remineralizing the teeth. They say in the book, The Facial Diagnosis for Cell Salt Deficiencies by David Card, they say in the book, or he says in the book, works with albumin in the blood to deliver phosphate to the bones, which I thought was so interesting. So when you're thinking about bone density, tooth health, bone healing, think about calc phos. And we usually abbreviate these. It might be calcium phosphate, but you're going to see them on the shelf as calc phos. So when they go back to the periodic table of the elements, we're going to see things like Kali phos, and Kali is potassium. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So it strengthens the teeth. It's helpful for strengthening the immune system. It builds the blood, so it makes the blood more capable of delivering oxygen. It's great for conditions of eczema. There may be anxiety about the future, desire for solitude after grief, and issues with memory. And we're going to see an even better cell salt for memory, which is a secret. I won't say which one it is yet, but it's really, really interesting. And actually, at this time, an incredibly important cell salt that you need to know about. So stay tuned for that. So Kelly, what is your take on calc phos?
You know, one of the most significant things about calc phos that I would describe is when you or someone you know is in that state of the brakes are on and you just can't move forward on anything, or lack motivation. That's what they describe it in the book as motivation. But what I have found is when myself or my kids or even friends, I have one friend, grandma, who's managing an unbelievable situation with her daughter, and then she's raising the grandson, and she'll text me and she'll say her grandson won't get out of bed, and I'll say, well, did you try calc phos? She immediately gives it to him and he immediately gets up and gets moving. So anytime that you feel like you're stuck, and my assessment, this isn't based on any science, I think it builds your dopamine. It balances your dopamine because dopamine is your action neurotransmitter. So I think what it does is balances out that dopamine so that you can move forward on things. And
So
it helps
many of these
confidence
are
too.
so many of these seem to have direct impact on the nerves or the nervous system. And
Yes,
you get from the book that deficiencies of these cell salts have very serious consequences, to the point where he says about one of the remedies that we're going to talk about that, mental institutions could go out of business if everybody became sufficient in these certain cell salts.
exactly. I know I've thought many times I need to contact like my council member and just say, okay, let's get rid of this homelessness problem in California. If we just do these things, you'll see a huge difference.
It's not too far from the truth. So a couple of things, one of the things we learned about in naturopathic college was bioplasma. The bioplasma is actually a combination of all 12 remedies. Do you have any idea if that's like something that somebody should take as an ongoing supplement, or do you think that there's more efficacy from really getting into the individual or a couple of the cell salts that are needed at the time?
I think and based a friend has actually knows the author of the book.
David Card, uh-huh.
Yes, and what he has said is that the individual remedies are more powerful
That makes sense to me.
than the bioplasma.
Okay.
I think they're both good.
Hmm.
They're all good, but if you're trying to address something specific, then I would use the individual remedy. You just want to be careful with the individual remedy. What it can sometimes do, I find, is you'll take one to balance one thing, and then it will create another need for an additional salt. So you just have to make sure that you keep balancing.
So if you did identify a deficiency through a condition, how long should somebody take the salt for? Like how many days in a row?
You know, it just kind of depends, and that's where the genius comes in.
Mhm.
Our thoughts, our our environments, there's so many different influences on, and then how deep the deficiency is, and then coordinating each of them go together. Like the calciums go together, the phosphoruses go together, the potassium, the calis go together, the nats, the sodiums go together. So the only one that stands on its own is silica. um so I would be hesitant to specifically say take it for this amount of times. What I just do is I go in the genius, and whatever the genius says, that's what I do. And it creates miracles.
Okay. And there was a question about the 6x and the 12x potencies. I do see them kind of online at 6x and 12x. When you're learning, with X potencies, it's actually the higher the number, the more powerful it is. Whereas in homeopathy, the less amount that's in there is actually stronger. So in this case, a 12x would be more powerful than a 6x. I always say less is more, and I'd probably go with the 6x. Do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, I use the 6X.
Okay, there
I
you go.
if I'm using the physical ones just because they're easier to get, I use the Highlands.
Mm-hmm.
Now they did just change their formula. It used to be these teeny tiny pills where on average you would take anywhere from 4 to 8, and I would just test in the Genius how many to take. They've now changed it to a larger pill so that
Mm-hmm. I
it's
know what
either
those are.
1 or 2.
One or two. Yeah, I know what those are. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one to keep up the momentum here. And the next one is calc sulf or calcium sulfate. It is a tissue builder. It's key in the production of fibrin along with another cell salt called kalimur. And it sounds like sometimes these cell salts really work good in combination. Supports healthy skin and clotting function. Now, consider this in the cases of bronchitis or chronic lung conditions. It's important for chronic conditions in general. So it's a combination of calcium and sulfate. David Card says in his book, lack of this vitalizer in the body allows the epithelial cells to break down, allowing tissue to disintegrate, which is so fascinating. He says about calcium sulfate that it clears out accumulation in the extracellular matrix, which is like metabolic waste that builds up in the body. And so it's a vehicle to detox. It specifically has an affinity for the liver, gallbladder, and heart, which means the cell salt would be in more abundance in these places. Emotionally, fatigue, worry, general lack of energy to move forward. Although Kelly did tell us that calc phos is kind of that's emotionally stuck, and when you take it, it allows you to move forward. What are your thoughts about calcium sulfate and how do you use it?
The difference between a few of the different ones have different. So calc phos is you're just completely immobilized, and like I said, that parking brake is on. The calc sulf is more of a severe exhaustion state. Cali phos is another exhaustion one that we'll get to later, but calc phos I think is
Or
like
okay, calc sulf.
calc sulf, excuse me. Calc sulf is related to anything that's yellow. They're different. What's really interesting about this book is how he breaks down the different stages of inflammation or infection. It
This is
usually
kind of
goes
related to
here.
Chinese medicine too, because when you have more,
Yes.
like, look at your tongue in the morning. Maybe you do tongue scraping, but stick your tongue out in the morning, really before you brush your teeth. Do you see a coat on it? That's significant. Do you see a white coat? Do you see a yellow coat on the sort of the mucus or exudation that's on your tongue? So if they saw yellow, what would be the remedy?
Yellow is calc sulf.
Right.
White is calc phos. A clear is Cali myrrh.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, so you can literally, in fact, I just took a friend to the airport and she was dealing with, I told you this yesterday, dealing with some things, and we talked about it, and I was like, you just have to look at your, what color is it? And that tells you what the remedy is.
Yeah, and
So
not only related, I mean, if you had a clear coat, you probably wouldn't do anything, but you're referring more to mucus. So if the mucus,
mucus,
yeah,
exactly, exactly,
yeah, that's
exactly.
really cool. Okay, very, very cool. Okay, ferrum phos. Now we're starting to get juicy. So ferrum phos is so interesting. So ferrum, of course, there's ferrous, right? That's iron, and then phos, that's going to be phosphorus. And phosphorus turns out to be really significant. We never really talk about minerals, phosphorus, because phosphorus is in a lot of food. It's very abundant in the environment. So we really don't hear about people like in marketing, like marketing magnesium or marketing calcium, and we don't hear about phosphorus in that way. But I do think, nonetheless, it can be deficient. So when a deficiency in iron occurs, it in a natural chemical affinity, it draws the blood in the body, it's referring to the body, inward from the surface of the body. So when you're iron deficient, maybe you don't know you are, maybe you are, maybe you just don't feel like yourself. Maybe this is the cause. This is so interesting. It draws the blood inward to the surface of the body, kind of like when you jump into a cool, like a cold plunge, in order to conserve this life force so that the vital organs of the heart, stomach, liver, lungs, and brain may continue to function. This is from the book that we're referring to. The low circulation at the skin and outer part of the body allows the pores to close. So this is like if you were in a state of iron deficiency anemia, and maybe you move into a chronicity because it's a long-standing iron deficiency anemia. This leads to discharges, mucus congestion, possible pneumonia, or other issues of the lungs in the long term. So that is something so fascinating that I wasn't, didn't really make the connection with the two, that the depletion of blood and sort of conservation of the blood is going to rob that blood from other areas and probably could lead to skin conditions as well. So iron also gives strength to the walls and of the veins and the arteries. What else can you tell us about the importance of ferrum phos?
I think one of the most unique things that I've found is that when you get, this may sound strange to some, but when you get hit with significant Wi-Fi or radiation or something like that, what has become clear to me is that radiation causes your blood cells to stick together and you get tired. You can feel like if I'm holding devices too much or around Wi-Fi too much, and you'll actually see it in the Genius aura, the aura will turn gray. The ferrum phos breaks that up and it gets the red blood cells moving. So think about with iron deficiency, you can be tired. I believe from my experience that when I have had situations where I'm hit with too much, I am sensitive. So if I'm hit with too much of that, I'll go on the Genius, test the ferrum phos, and it's usually extremely strong. Take it, and it completely brings the energy back.
It's amazing.
So,
yeah. And, one thing that's really popular in the United States, I know nobody can imagine this, is coffee drinking. But did you know that drinking coffee on a regular basis depletes iron over time? So if you're a long-term coffee drinker, you might have some symptoms of iron deficiency anemia, and you may want to look into like a temporary, run of taking some ferrum phos. You may feel significantly different.
Exactly. It's also a great fever reducer. They talk about the different stages of fever, and ferrum phos is one of the first stages. And I believe that why it works so well is, again, I think if you looked at someone under a live blood analysis, you would initially see before they take it if the red blood cells are all stuck together, and then they take the ferrum phos, you would see those blood cells moving they would be moving like a normal, and that's really what the ferrum phos does. It's a miracle, which it's just great that we can have remedies like this, because then we don't have to fear some of these things
I
that
think
we
remedies
get
like this should
exposed
be,
to.
I think the true healers in life are these natural remedies that we discover that are so inexpensive. I mean, ounce for ounce, pound for pound, cell salts are cheap.
I know
They're
they're like
really
10,
inexpensive.
$15.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so you could just keep a whole set, in your home and sort of use them as like a first aid, use them as needed for different conditions. And as you move through, different needs, you can address those deficiencies and take this cell salt for a few days or for a week and then move to another one as needed.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the next one here. So Kali-Mur is potassium, Kali, that K on the periodic chart of the elements. And, it says, potassium chloride it is. And we also call it in homeopathy, or in cell salts, Kali muriaticum. So it is a mineral worker of the blood that also forms fibrin, and we mentioned that in the other cell salt, I think, calc phos, and properly diffuses it through the tissues of the body. A white or gray coating of the tongue, mucus lining, or tonsils is the fibrin that has become non-functional. That's so interesting, due to the deficiency of potassium chloride and oxygen. It's also good for toothache, ear pain, heart palpitations, irritability, apathy, homesickness. Oh, I said apathy again. What's your take on Kali-Mur?
It's really a significant, e- especially if you have allergies or some of the current stuff that's going around. If you get any kind of a drippy nose, like watery, the Calimer immediately takes care of it.
Wow.
Immediately.
Wow. That's so great.
Yes, yes. And the family issues one is huge too. You see the emotional components in each of the cell salts. There's some pretty powerful forgiveness, and this one is specific to things going on within the family.
Okay, so family, when you have family conflict, it's good.
Hmm.
You're getting irritated or inflamed, and it's actually because you have a deficiency of the Kali mirror.
Exactly. And then this one is also the second stage of fever. So Ferrum is the first stage, and then Calimur is the second stage, so 101 to 103. And if you catch it in the Ferrum stage, then you probably don't even need the Calimur. But let's say the fever does accelerate to that second stage, then the Calimur will definitely help with that.
So that's a really interesting thing. So if you feel like a cold or flu coming on, and all of a sudden there you are coughing, you got to get into bed, you can actually take, is it the ferrum phos in order to kind of ward off the progression of the cold or flu?
So Ferrum what I should add to Ferrum is all about inflammation. So
Okay.
if you're inflamed, like for instance, I just used it the last few days. I was like, oh my gosh, my gums are just inflamed. I don't know what I have done. What do I need? And got on the Genius, tested it. Lo and behold, it was Ferrum. I did a combination of when I was out and about, I ran the frequency, and then if I was home, I just put the pills all along my gums, completely calm them down. So anytime
Wow.
that there is like redness, think of redness associated with Ferrum.
Well, what if you have dental surgery or even just a dental filling? Could you use it after that?
Yeah, definitely. If it's bloody and red and heat, it's associated. I associate it with
Ferrum,
heat.
ferrum
Yeah,
phos. We're still talking about
yeah,
ferrum
or
phos,
in
right? Okay.
just inflammation. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's such a great hint. They're so dynamic. Now, we did have a couple of questions for you here. How many different salts would be okay to take at one time?
Oh, it just doesn't even matter. There are combinations. There are, I would just do whatever the genius says. Put it into, use the panel or just test in the synergistics. And you can even test, like you can look and say, I think I need these three or four, just test them together. Or
That's a great
do
idea.
one or do it in progression. So do one, because what can happen is you can look and think you need a bunch of them. But the beauty of the genius is it allows you to get to the tip of the iceberg. And usually, if you get the one key deficiency, everything else goes into line.
Right. When you're taking any type of homeopathic and you want to take several different kinds, it is better in general to let the resonance of one kind of be in your body. So you might separate those out by 30 minutes or an hour. And on that note, it is okay to take it with food or around time of meals. I'd recommend at least 30 minutes away from the meal. So 30 minutes before and maybe even an hour after a meal. So I think the best way, because you're taking in a resonance and you are taking in somewhat a physical substance, but I think the best way for it to really work in your body is on an empty stomach. Kelly, do you have some opinions about that?
Well, I will tell you, I just do whatever, you
Okay.
know. I mean,
Whatever you
there
can
are
do to get the
many.
remedy in.
Yep, I just take it, and a lot of times I'll need something right before I go to bed because need something to balance out, and then I'll immediately brush my teeth and it's totally fine and it works. Or even I'll take one and go eat. So I think ideally, if you can wait, it's great. But I will tell you from experience, do what works for you. Don't not take it because you're hungry or you need to go to bed and brush your teeth. It needs to be like Nike. Just do it.
That's really good. And Dale says, Kelly, do you use the Genius to find out what cell salts are needed? Or are you kind of also are using combination of your understanding of the deficiency, what it looks like and the facial diagnosis? How are you doing that?
Yes, I do a combination of both. What I'll sometimes do is do the facial diagnosis and look and see like, okay, what do I need? And then I'll get on the Genius and test and confirm it because I cannot muscle test. So I will get on the synergistics and test it, and then I'm a bit perfectionistic, and I will even go in and test how many pills to take, or even I will, even when I run the frequency, I will sometimes just run the general remedy, but sometimes I will go into the number of pills. And what's interesting is most of the time you can just test the general remedy, but sometimes when I just know I need something, I'll have to go into the number of pills, and it just creates a miracle.
Okay, fantastic. So you're really using a combination of both. But for anybody who's doing this, I think, especially in the beginning, test with the Genius. Look at
Yeah,
that top red remedy.
absolutely.
Look at the bottom blue remedy. And the bottom blue remedy is the most significant remedy when you're testing for importance of remedies. So you can go with that bottom blue one, then go to the quick guide that we gave to you, or get the book by David Card, because it's not just about the facial diagnosis. He really gets into, you could see the gems that we've been bringing out in the lecture, where he really talks about the deep meaning of the cell salts. And so then you could read that particular cell salt and see if it really resonates. And it isn't going to be any harm to run the frequency, but in case you really want to start matching the symptoms with the cell salt and really get to know them, that's a great way, because often when you read about the remedy in more detail after it came up for the client in blue, then what you discover is, wow, that nailed it. It's exactly what they needed.
Exactly. Well, and so as we're talking about, what I want to make sure I tell you too, the Calimar Fuss, I have to tell you, I've told you about our guinea pig. We came back from summer and she was staying at a friend's. She had this massive boil on her shoulder. And so I got on the Genius to see what she needed. And a combination of the alternating Calimar and Ferrum Foss completely disintegrated it, like in front of my eyes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. This is crazy. Um, but the Calimar was the watery part of the boil, and then the Ferrum Foss, if it would start to bleed a little bit, I would just put the Ferrum Foss on it and it would completely stop.
That's amazing. That's why I think these are so extraordinary, because you've had such amazing results with them. So that's fascinating. Yeah. So now we're thinking about in the future for anybody with kind of an acute or chronic inflammation about the ferrum phos, and really it's just making a correction to deficiencies that are causing these physiological changes in the body. So even more so, like, it's a really cool way to help people be brought into balance.
Exactly. But I will say I tested everything before I did it in the Genius. So that's how I identify. I'm not saying just go in randomly. I always verify everything. So
No, that's really good.
um,
V says, would Kali Mira be good for an angry eye sty? What would you think about for a sty? An angry
oh,
eye sty.
sty. Well, if it's white, like if it's along the eye, like right at your eyelashes, the white ones are usually nat myrrh. I get those, but if it's hot and inflamed, I would say maybe ferrum phos, but I would test it. But usually, and he actually says in the book, nat myrrh is the remedy for right along the lower eye, like right where your eyelashes meet your eye. What is that called? The
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Let's continue on, because we're gonna have to probably just rush through the last few to maybe get a brief case in here. Um, So I loved, I even got bigger font because I got so excited about Kali Foss. I love what he says, that Kali Foss it's like such a big remedy, really. He says it's a great builder of positive brain cells. So when you're thinking about Alzheimer's, when you're thinking about cognition, when you're thinking about your memory, when you're thinking about wanting to improve your brain, I want you to start thinking about Kali Foss, which is potassium phosphate. And he says in the book, when the chemical possibilities of this brain are fully understood, it will put any mental institutions out of business. He talks about it for nervous disorders, chronic pessimism, or kind of making mountains out of molehills, when one small thing happens and you just completely lose it. K-Li-Phos is the greatest healing agent known because it is the chemical base of material expression and understanding. Man has been deficient in understanding because his brain receiver did not vibrate to certain subtle influences. So we're not picking up the information. We're so easily fooled and deceived by false information because we're not in touch, we're not in tune. And K-Li-Phos helps you to be more in tune, which I found fascinating. So tell us a little bit, Kelly, about your take on K-Li-Phos.
You know, I think he actually says this in the book, and I find this K-Li-Phos is for the stressed executive. It's for the person that's overwhelmed. One of the key signs of a K-Li-Phos deficiency is the outside edges of the eyes turn down. The person is like, you can just see they're just worn. They're just worn out and just look exhausted. There are different levels of exhaustion, and I think the K-Li-Phos is that state of it's kind of like Bachflower Oak. I'm exhausted, but I just need to keep going. And that's really what it's definitely a nervous system balancer. It's for when you've overdone things and you just need, I would say someone who's overexcitable, has a little too much energy, but is exhausted. You get to that state where you're exhausted, but you're just revved. I find that is the K-Li-Phos.
That's great. That's great information. Well, now lots of interest and lots of questions flowing in here. I absolutely love it. We have saved this on the last slide, but let's talk about it now. What brand of cell salts do you use? Kelly mentioned that she uses Highlands, and I mentioned one called Professional Formulas. There's also Boron, and Wendy in the chat mentioned Dr. Reckenswig, his remedies as well. Do you have any others you want to add to that?
I just use either the Genius or I typically because it's easy access for me. And to me, the sad thing is we need to get more classes out like this, because I don't think people know how to use them. What I am seeing in the stores is they are reducing their inventory on the cell salts, because I think people just don't know. They just don't know how to use them.
You should start teaching at the stores for them.
I know, exactly.
What remedy will help with Parkinson's?
Well, Parkinson's is typically definitely a phosphorus, and K-Li-Phos, I think, is definitely, the K-Li-Phos is definitely one of the key ones that I would try.
Okay, so for Larry, who asked about Parkinson's, K-Li-Phos, the one we just talked about, what cell salt would be good for hormonal balance?
I think it depends on, I think Nat Sulf is a good one. Obviously it would depend on where the hormone balance is. Nat Sulf, Nat Mur is huge. For Nat Mur, number 10 is sodium chloride. And think about what sodium chloride impacts the kidneys, and where are your, where is your kidney, and your hormones go out of balance when your kidney yin yang goes out of balance. But then if you blow out the kidney yin yang, the Nat Sulf, if you're sensitive to salt, the Nat Sulf will help. Nat Mur will help. And then what I have found, I'm 54, what I have found is once you blow out the kidney yin yang, it seems to go to the spleen. There's something called the thoroughfare meridian. And so some of the ones, depending on what stage you're in, some of the ones that help the spleen, but also Nat Phos, which is for acidity. Let's
make sure we talk about this. This is another key one that I don't want people to leave this lecture today without understanding. Nat Phos is, you could recommend it for so many things, right? It is the alkalizing cell salt. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think that that's the hot flash one. I think what happens when you have a hot flash is your body goes acidic, and the hot flash is it bringing it back into balance. So and so nat phos is if you have any kind of acidity or acid reflux, the traditional remedy is nat phos, and it also helps blood sugar. So nat phos will help blood sugar when it goes low. That's for hypoglycemia. Nat phos will completely bring that back. And then what's interesting I've found also is that if you have negative thoughts, you become acidic, and that nat and you immediately can change some of that with the nat phos. And that is another one that helps with some of the depending on how hard you're getting hit with the Wi-Fi. Sometimes Wi-Fi can make you, there seem to be two different stages. I think the ferrum phos for Wi-Fi is the gray that you see in the aura. Nat phos is when it goes black. So it's
Wow.
just, I mean, think about what is acid. It's dark. It's
Mm,
darkness.
that's really
So
interesting.
so it's literally, if you, depending on whatever your religious beliefs are, it is the create it brings back the love and the happiness, and that acidity is it completely diffuses that. Now I do have family members who have acid reflux problems, and I have found that some of them, this is where the genius is key, is I'll immediately go to nat phos, but sometimes you have to start with the calc phos first.
Well, tell us a little bit about how does that work?
So, it just depends on the person. I have an aunt who is in pretty severe stages of acid reflux, really negatively impacting her, and nothing is working. And I just saw her over Christmas, and also has some anxiety. Told her a couple things to try, and it impacts my mom too. And as soon as my mom was definitely the nat phos. My aunt, we had to start with the calc phos first. Now, interestingly, also, my mother has severe bunions, and the bunion remedy is Cali Myrrh.
Wow, that's good to know.
Yes. However, Cali Myrrh was not testing positive for my mom, and this is where the genius is so important, is it's actually the acidity that's causing her bunion. So the nat phos helps that, and I gave it to her one night before bed, and she woke up in the middle of the night, and she goes, I don't know what was in that, but it completely cleared me out.
Yeah, that's amazing. They're so powerful. It sounds like we're going to bring a volunteer. Sarah, we're going to work with you. We're going to do a really quick check of the cell salt. So Sarah, just be ready for that. And quick question, what would you use for cataracts?
Oh, cataracts are calc fluor.
Oh, that's so
It's
great.
number one.
Lack of elasticity.
Yeah.
That's really cool, actually. Sarah, we're going to promote you up here to a panelist. So we're going to bring you on here to do a really quick check on the cell salts. Best cell salts for blood clots.
Well, wait, before we say that, is
Hmm.
cornea is cornea what you just asked about, does that impact? Because my father had to have that surgery. I just want to make sure I'm giving the right advice. I don't want to are cataracts impacted? Do cataracts impact the cornea?
I think so.
This is where my perfection comes in. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right information. If cataracts impact the cornea, then calc fluor is the remedy.
Yeah, it's a clouding of the lens of the eye, which is typically clear. For people who have cataracts, seeing through cloudy lenses, so they're looking through like a fogged up window. Clouded vision caused by cataracts makes it difficult to read or drive a car at night.
Was that cloudiness in the cornea?
I would have to do further research, but
Research. We can
so
follow
we'll
up with
wait
her.
on that recommendation and we'll come back. Somebody says Jackson Naturals is really good. All right, we're going to ask more of the questions in a second. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, lovely voice.
Great.
So let's go ahead and how are you today?
Oh, I'm a little weary. It's very early in the morning here in New Zealand. I'm sort of
Oh
only half
gosh,
awake.
it's really early in New Zealand. That's really cool that you joined us. Sarah, we're nearing the end of the hour, but I want to make this as quick as possible, but we're excited to look at the cell salts for you. I'm just going to get your voice for this purpose to go a little bit quickly, but the voice is very significant. So may I record your voice? I'm going to go ahead and count down and have you say the A-E-I-O-U. So I'll start recording your voice in three, two, one. I'm recording.
Sarah Nicholson. A-E-I-O-U. 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 A-E-I-O-U.
No, it's
A-E.
perfect. Absolutely, that's perfect. What is it like 5 or 6 a.m. in New Zealand on tomorrow, Tuesday?
7.
It's
7 a.m.
7. Okay, well, it's still pretty early. And it's towards the end of the hour, so you had to get up and be on at 6 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we got to pick you for this. That's really awesome. Now, is there anything that you can tell Kelly about something that you're experiencing that might let her know which cell salt might be the right one for you?
Well, the main thing is my right shoulder. It's been injured and re-injured. I've had surgery on it, rotator cuff surgery years ago, and it's giving me pain, especially at night when I'm trying to sleep.
Okay, so right off the bat, without the genius, is there a cell salt that comes to mind, Kelly?
You know, if it's inflammation, I would say that ferrum phos or magphos. Magphos tends to act like arnica. Um, but if it's hot, red and inflamed, then I would say ferrum phos. I, the ferrum phos, when there is inflammation, is an absolute miracle.
Ferrum
Uh, and the magphos is more of like muscle, like we own a property that I'll have to haul 80-pound buckets of sand around. And I find if I do the magphos beforehand and after, I don't bruise, and I don't because I'm constantly knocking myself all over, or the buckets will hit me in a certain way. If I don't take it, then I will bruise. But if I, the magphos seems to help the muscles if it's a muscle related. Um, depending on what area of the shoulder is impacted.
All right, well, let's look at them together. So calcium fluoride comes out at the top, but that's not too surprising because that could also help with the ligaments and connective tissue in the shoulders.
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. So if it's connective tissue, then I would definitely say calc. Yes.
And then we have also, but it's interesting, calc fluor and calc phos. Do you have any issues, Sarah, with teeth, with cavities or demineralization or any with the bone?
Um, I suspect there's a bone issue with the shoulder, and yes, I have a molar that is, uh, a little bit niggly at times.
Okay, all right. Well, that's not that too significant. Okay, Kelly, back to you. What do you make out of the results here?
Um, well, I would say if it's coming up, let me just look. I'm on my phone. It's kind of small.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Let me tell you, calcium fluoride,
will
magnesium,
you,
mag
but
phos.
will you put it into Progressive Insights? I like to use Progressive. I either like to test the blue and the red in synergistics, or I like to put it into Progressive Insights, because what you really want to do is look at um what is the top need.
All right, let's include a few others that are on the kind of the outskirts here. Is there anything that you like to run always with the cell salts?
No, I just
Okay,
use
you just use it on its own.
but if calc phos came up, that does help cartilage too. So if it's
Okay, yeah,
bones, muscles, teeth.
calc phos is like the number one.
Interesting. So maybe it's cartilage within the shoulder. you could go into Synergistics and test calc phos for, was it left shoulder?
Right.
Right, for right shoulder. I like to get very exact with my
Let's do it together. So calc phos is the one. Let's do it together. Let's go. Now I know the synergistics is a little bit different, but hopefully we could just go with it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put up in here.
I would put a brand too. I would list a, or just do calc phos 6x.
And you want to say like 2 tablets per day?
I would try with just general
Okay, let's do it.
and see what. Look at that.
It's a pretty strong yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if it's specific to the shoulder, you could then say for right shoulder pain or for right shoulder, whatever the diagnosis is.
It looks
But
like
that's really,
it looks like it's just an overall like really good remedy.
really good remedy. Yeah, that'll really help you overall. And think about the state that she's in. She had to get up early, tired. I can't explain why, but I will honestly tell you, if I feel stuck or if I have a child who is not moving and needs to be doing things, or like I said, friends, that calc phos is the get moving remedy.
That's amazing. Wow, even more so. Look at that. Kelly, that's even stronger.
That is.
That's almost all completely. I think we found the remedy for your shoulder pain, Sarah. What do you think?
Yay, yay. That's great.
That's really exciting. If you can't get Highlands, you can really get any cell salt that is, local to you. All right, Sarah, I have to make it super quick, but hopefully you got something out of today. I'm so glad that you joined us from New Zealand today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was awesome. That was really great. Just some quick final questions. First of all, Kelly, I put your email address into the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Is there another way that you would like people to get in touch with you, or is that the best way?
You know what? Let's list my phone number too. People can call or text. Also.
Yeah, I'll put it. Yeah, I can put it in the chat there.
Sometimes my email goes a little haywire and doesn't always deliver things.
Okay, we're gonna have to get a better email dedicated just to your practice inquiries, because I think you're gonna get a lot today. People are really interested in finding out more and learning from you. Let's just go ahead and put that into the chat. And then which one would be for excessive scar tissue reducing mobility? What comes to mind? That sort of reminds me of the calc floor again.
Yeah. Yes, I would. I'm trying to think. My husband gets keloids.
Keloids,
And I would say that, or the traditional skin. Well, actually, a couple things. Calc fluor or Cali sulf is the traditional skin remedy for anything skin related. Cali
Calc
sulf
fluor and kali sulf.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm I've always pronounced it Cali, but I'm sure that isn't right though.
Oh no, Cali is fine, and kali is what naturopaths say. They're all fine.
So that is number 7, is the traditional skin remedy, and the way that he describes it is your skin is within your pores. It's like a steam engine letting the air out or the steam out, and when the pores get blocked, the Cali sulf opens up the pores.
That's
Now,
really good.
traditionally for scars, silica is usually my husband had
silica. Yeah, silica, you're right. Silica's the one to use.
My husband had to have a face, or he had a mole that he had to have removed, and so he's doing the silica patch. So I would say, because what silica does is it extracts things out and breaks things down.
Right.
So I would tend to think I would try silica and then, or at different stages, first silica, Kali sulf, and then calc fluor.
Okay, that's perfect.
But you don't
Thanks.
have to do all of them.
Yeah, you could just do one. You could try one.
Yeah.
Just start with that first one. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring you back on camera. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So once again, we put Kelly's information. We'll see if we can get it maybe into the newsletter, if she's okay with that. But thank you so much. I'm always so inspired by how you use the Genius, and bringing the elements of cell salts into this has been absolutely awesome. So thank you so much.
Well, I love it. Real quick before we go, though, some
Yes,
of the
please.
really powerful, like Nat Mur, let's just go over like two, like just really quick. So
Yeah.
McFoss's muscles or arnica, Nat Mur is literally the fluid balancer. Like if you're holding water,
Mhm.
Nat Mur is an absolute miracle,
Okay, so you're like
especially for women.
retaining water.
Retaining water, exactly. Nat Mur is an absolute miracle. And I also believe, so Nat Mur is, the description of it is, it's the malaria cure. It's for when your body is holding on, there's too much liquid, and there's a lot of evidence too that with the virus that goes around, that Nat Mur is one of the key remedies for that, because it does, the virus that goes around does act like a parasite, and that's what Nat Mur helps. And then Nat Sulf, number 10, is amazing for the lymphatics, and Nat Sulf also balances high blood sugar. So if you eat sugar, Nat Sulf is a miracle remedy. If you eat sugar and you need to balance out your blood sugar, because it's too high, Nat Sulf will automatically do that. It will also help gray matter of the brain and low mood. Nat Sulf also helps. Like this morning I got up and I was like, ugh, my skin is crepey, and you know, as you get older, your skin can get kind of flabby. And I looked down and I was like, oh, I need Nat Sulf. Got on the Genius, tested it, balanced it, and within the balance, without even taking or running anything, just testing it, my skin came back. You know how your skin can kind of hang?
Mhm.
The Nat Sulf completely takes care of that.
That's really cool.
And then silica is, we already talked about silica, but silica is collagen. So it builds, it's a really quick and easy collagen builder.
Everybody loves that because it's like a beauty anti-aging treatment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much better than some of these other things that are out there.
All right,
So
perfect.
yes.
All right, I'm going to end it there. But Kelly, thank you again. And we have you in the chat there. And we'll also let people know by email how to get in touch with you. Does that sound good?
Yes, yes, yes. Amazing. Yes. Ariel, thank you for all you do for the community. This is like the miracles that we all create daily are
Yes, from the
unbelievable.
Genius. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And yeah, this has been really, really, really helpful to a lot of people. So you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you again.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. It was great to have Kelly on and just talking about the cell salts. And so we'll be back next week with another topic in natural health. And tomorrow, please do go to geniusbiofeedback.com to join us at 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern, to look at ways that I look at a case. And we'll also be reviewing the people we worked with 2 weeks ago. And we have a new client to work with. And in the business membership, we get down to the nuts and bolts about why these different aspects of healing are working for people and how you can utilize them as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.